My wife is from Kanosh. She grew up in Kanosh. And one of the stories that remains one of our favorites is her sister, my sister-in-law, came home late one night. And she walked in the door of her house, and standing on the stairs was a tall, dark figure, tall silhouette. She thought for sure that it was her oldest daughter, my niece, Ella. And as she stood there, about to address the dark figure reached up, grabbed onto its head, took off its head, and threw it at my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law screamed and screamed and screamed! And then the figure stepped into the light, and she saw that it wasn't my niece, Ella. It was my nephew, Orrin. The reason she thought it was my niece, Ella, is because Orrin was carrying a basketball on top of his head. And when he saw his mom come in the house, he threw the basketball at her! Times when you're scared. But we are especially scared of headless stuff, aren't we? I'll tell you.
Definitely.
Now gather around while I elucidate what happened around here when it gets late. Long about midnight, the ghosts and banshees, they get together for the night of jamboree. Some are horned and buggy-eyed, some have fangs about this size. Some are fat and some are thin, and some don't even wear their skin. I'm telling you, it's a frightful sight what goes on here. Round about midnight, blah, 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 blah. At the midnight jamboree, they break it up with fiendish glee. Ghosts are bad, but the one most cursed is the headless horseman. He's the worst. When he goes a-jogging across the land, holding his noggin in his hand, demons take one look and groan, and the head will roll for points unknown. It's a hip, the hippity-hop. He's out looking for a head to swap, so don't try to figure out a plan. You can reason with a headless man. Well, that just scared us right out of our socks when we were kids. It wasn't until I was grown up that I learned a little bit about that story. You know the story of the Headless Horseman. You know the story of the Headless Horseman? Ichabod Crane comes to town. Washington Irving wrote this story in 1820. Washington Irving wrote the story of Ichabod Crane who comes to town, takes over the schoolmaster's job, and he falls in love with the beautiful Katrina Van Tassel. And she's already spoken for by Brown Bones, right? When Brown Bones late at night tells the story of the Headless Horseman. Scares Ichabod Crane near to death. He rides home that night and swears he sees the Headless Horseman. Swears he's chased by the Headless Horseman. In the morning, the townsfolk can find nothing but a smashed pumpkin in the road and no sign of Ichabod Crane at all. It's one of America's most famous ghost stories. It was written during a time of, it was conceived of during a time of, get this, a time of pandemic. Yellow fever was racking people all over the world. Washington Irving came down from where he lived in New York to Tarrytown, where Sleepy Hollow is. And he got to know folks by the name of Van Tassel. He got to hear the legend of the Headless Horseman. The way the story goes is, after the Battle of White Plains in 1776, Revolutionary War battle, George Washington fought that battle, and after it was over, he lived kind of a no man's land, where the army had pulled out, and all there was bands of marauding Hessians going through, burning homes sometimes, looting them. They'd walk into a home that was still lived in, and they'd drag the family outside, and they'd torch the house, but not after they'd taken anything valuable that they wanted. The way the story goes, a band of marauding Hessians went to a home, pulled the family outside, grabbed all the valuables, set fire to the home, and then the woman who lived in the home shouted out, my baby is still inside. Well, one of the Hessians that had looted the home and set it on fire, looked at the woman, and then looked at the house, and then looked at the woman, and then looked at the house, and then ran into the burning house to retrieve the baby. Grabbed the baby, came outside, handed the baby to the mother. The house was gone. The mother was reunited with her baby. That band of marauding Hessians ran into the Patriot militia force later on. And that Hessian lost his head, quite literally, shot right off by a cannonball. Well, in the aftermath of that little conflict, the family, who had lost their home but been reunited with the baby, found that Hessian headless on the ground. And they decided that since he had shown at least the kindness of retrieving their child, that they would give him a Christian burial. They buried him in an old Dutch churchyard, where he lies to this day, nameless. And the family that buried him was a family by the name of Van Tassel, just like in the legend of Sleepy Hollow. The woman whose child had been returned to her was Katrina Van Tassel, just like the woman with whom Ichabod Crane is so infatuated in the story. If you go visit that Sleepy Hollow cemetery today, you'll find that the Hessian is buried there, the headless horseman, and so is Katrina Van Tassel. And so is Washington Irving, the author of the story. All of them buried there in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. About a years have gone by. In 1996, the area around Sleepy Hollow, Terrytown it's called, decided they might cash in on the legendary status of their town, and they renamed the town officially the town of Sleepy Hollow. And the Headless Horseman is the high school mascot. And there are pictures of the Headless Horseman everywhere. Pictures of the Headless Horseman on the school bus. Even on the ambulance, there's a picture of the Headless Horseman. My wife and I, researching the story of the Headless Horseman, we found YouTube videos of folks who talked about how every once in a while somebody says they've seen the Headless Horseman. And the interviewer says to them, "Oh yeah? When was the last time somebody said they saw the Headless Horseman?" And the person they're talking to, the resident of Sleepy Hollow, looks at the camera and says, 3 days ago. He's out looking for a hand to swallow, so don't try to figure out the plan. You can't reason with it this way. Halloween story. You know, there are headless stories all over the place. And that story, of course, takes place far away in New York. But the Headless Horseman, Washington Irving's Headless Horseman, is part of the ghost story heritage of the whole country, the ghost story heritage of all of us. And it's because of stories like that that my sister-in-law in Kanash thought that her daughter was throwing her head at her. The truth is, in Utah, there are headless stories too. The Schofield mine disaster in 1900, at the time, the worst mining disaster in American history. 199 people died. A year later, there was a strike. There was a strike at the Schofield mine because the men who worked there, they had a number of troubles. They wanted better wages, things like that. But the main reason why they walked off the job is because when those 199 men were killed, and their mangled bodies pulled from the mine. The last body to be pulled from the mine was a Scotsman named Sandy McGregor. Sandy McGregor was pulled from the mine without a head. His head had been blown off in that mining disaster. And the reason why the miners walked off the job in 1901, in addition to all their other grievances, is that they had begun to see Sandy headless in the mine with them. The ghost of Sandy was down there, they maintained. They said that they would be down in the mine and they would turn around and they wouldn't see him at a distance walking by in the shadows. They would turn around and he'd be standing right behind them. Or they would find themselves riding in a coal car drawn by horses, and they would turn and Sandy would be sitting right next to them. And then, as they neared the entrance to the mine and came out into the sunlight, they would turn and Sandy would be gone. That's Utah's headless ghost story.